The 90s was rampant with in-your-face trends, and that meant several ploys by corporations trying to cash in on Generation X, which was just about the age to pay lots of money for hot new things. And in the middle of this wild west of bodaciousness, there were three crazes that created the perfect encapsulation of the era: pizza, aggressive commercialization, and licensed video games. Pizza was already popular before, but the rise and consolidation of fast food chains and its increasing pop culture relevance established the food as a 90s institution, at least in the United States. And one chain at the forefront of this push was Domino's, which introduced its character the Noid in 1986 to advertise their pies. The Noid relished in destroying your chances to enjoy warm, fresh delivery pizza, and Domino's avoided the Noid by... well, they never said exactly how, but who cares? There's a little animated goblin telling you to buy Domino's, so get on the phone, you dingus. And when you've got a hit character in the late 80s and 90s, your obvious next step is to make a cheap licensed game and sell it to the masses. That's the case with Yo! Noid, a bizarre little NES title developed by Now Production, later of Adventure Island sequel fame, and published by Capcom in 1990. This wasn't the Noid's first video game, as he was the antagonist of the DOS PC game Avoid the Noid in 1989, where you play as a Domino's delivery boy dodging the Noid with some sweet maneuvers, bro. But Yo! Noid starred the pizza pummeler in his own platforming adventure, and it quickly fell into obscurity. Though I do remember it being covered by a few early gaming YouTube channels back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, like Continue and The Irate Gamer.
Yo! Noid? Yo, fuck yourself.
And as 90s nostalgia went into overload, of course the Noid came back, albeit briefly, to entice a new generation of potential pizza lovers and make 90s kids wistfully remember the days of old. So in that spirit, let's see if this tie-in game is a fresh slice of retro goodness, or if its box never should have been opened. Now, your first question when you hear about a licensed NES game starring a pizza mascot might be, why did you play this? And that's a good question, I'll get back to you on that. Your second question might be, how does it feel to play? And you know what? It's not terrible. I mean, this came out 2 years after Super Mario Bros. 3, so by that time, developers had a firm grasp on the basics. The Noid doesn't run particularly fast, but he jumps pretty high, and you can immediately change your direction in mid-air thanks to the tight momentum. That means that jumping across platforms is, and you might not believe this, not very challenging. Honestly, the game isn't that hard for the most part. It's not a cakewalk considering the Noid bites the crust in only one hit and you have limited lives and continues. But there's not much that I would call unfair. Most of the deaths that I took could honestly be attributed to me. The Noid's inexplicable magic spells even the odds in your favor, blasting enemies on screen with lightning, shaking the ground to get rid of non-airborne threats, and donning a dark suit for higher jumps and quicker speed. All fine and good, but most of the time, you'll be bashing foes with your trusty yo-yo. Because if the Noid was associated with anything, it was yo-yos. It's not a bad attack actually, and I like how it can hurt foes on the rebound as well. The enemies don't put up too much of a fight, usually just walking towards you without any means to attack from a distance. They do learn this eventually, but there aren't that many real threats here, either enemy-based or level-based. I'd say the hardest thing to deal with is the strange hit detection. These dummies have some weird hitboxes, catching you on odd angles, or maybe the problem is the Noid? I mean, those ears might as well not be there since obstacles will just sail right past them. The other issue is figuring out what will damage you and what won't. Falling into water? Sure, that's a bad thing, but what about a platform that is about to be swallowed by water, but isn't quite yet? That is a death trap, my friend. What about a cannonball? That will obviously hurt you, but did you know that a puff of smoke is just as dangerous? Which isn't great when the Noid can't take more than one hit before fluttering away, but if it had to be that or bad controls, I'd take one-hit KOs any day of the week. What I'd rather not take are all these pizza eating contests, which are the closest things to boss battles that you'll get. It's pretty simple, your opponent Noid selects one of their pizza cards and you do likewise. Whoever selected more pizzas gets to chow down yum yum. Reach your target or force your opponent to run out of cards and you win. Simple enough, and you can even pick up multipliers or black pepper and hot sauce that stop your opponent from eating that round. The pepper I get, but are you telling me that you don't like hot sauce on a pizza? Unless you're drowning that pie in chili, I don't want to hear it. Anyway, this maybe has some element of strategy, but it boils down to responding to random chance, and there are far too many of these bosses throughout the game. And look, I love pizza as much as the next man, but something about eating buttloads of it at once nauseates me. I'm not sure why. Well, now we know the what of Yo! Noid, but what about the why of Yo! Noid? The game starts with an intro that explains how a bunch of hooligans led by the Noid's evil twin, Mr. Green, are running amok across New York City, and the mayor tasks the Noid, that's this Noid, not the others, with saving the day. And don't worry, he will try. Now, I could harken back to the days of pedantic video game reviewers and question why the Noid loves consuming pizza when his entire character is built on ruining pizza, and why John Mayer or whomever thinks the Noid is the right man for this job, but there are far more interesting things to talk about. Like how this game is something entirely different in Japan. Yo! Noid came out in November 1990 in the US, but 8 months before, in March, Capcom released Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru for the Famicom. In it, you play as the masked ninja, Hanamaru, who sets off on a journey to save his village with the help of his trusty hawk companion. But when Capcom set about localizing this game for America, it licensed the Noid character and replaced all the graphics and a bit of the sound and music, leaving the level design and gameplay more or less intact. That might sound weird to you, but the fact is, without the Domino's branding, this would have been lost in the ocean of NES platformers, and we wouldn't be talking about it today. So instead of a boy and his hawk, you get the Noid and his yo-yo. Instead of battling your opponents with ninjutsu, you battle your opponents with pizza. And instead of a carnival island in feudal Japan, we get various locations around New York. And the fact that it was pasted over a fantasy version of ancient Japan explains why this game's depiction of New York is so odd. It's been a while since I visited the city, but I don't exactly remember the sinking wharfs off the shores of Brooklyn, the haunted abandoned factory deep in the Bronx, and who could forget Manhattan's famous floating ice skating rink with no handrails. That's one reason why these locations look pretty simple, as the artist had to pull double duty transcribing the original level designs while making it look somewhat correct for urban America. What I love though is that the levels all looked very distinct from the Japanese variants. It might have felt strange to completely reinvent the visuals here, and there's the usual quirks of adapting a real environment to a video game stage, but they did a phenomenal job making everything feel natural. The fact that they took a vertical waterfall cave level and converted it into a climb up a skyscraper and it makes enough sense so that you don't question it is some kind of miracle. Some of these areas do get wacky though, and I'm not talking about the setting. They're usually simple left-to-right courses with treacherous platforming and the occasional enemy to deal with. Later levels give you obstacles like conveyor belts, springs, and floating platforms to deal with, but nothing too out of the ordinary. This game actually starts off pretty spicy. The first level keeps sinking up and down with instant death water, and the second level has ice physics. That was true in the original as well. The stage order wasn't shuffled around in a localization. Yet even with those front-loaded gimmicks, the difficulty actually curves up quite nicely. I wasn't aware of this during my playthrough, but there are hidden bonus games that let you skip the rest of the course with a round of whack-a-mole, which would be great if it didn't involve you jumping into a random unmarked pixel. But whatever, the Noid gets a hammer and uses it very responsibly. You know what's really strange about these levels though? Aside from the Noid, there's absolutely zero Domino's branding in them. You see their copyright notice on the title screen, and that's it, no logos or anything. It's like they wanted to endorse this product, but not endorse it too much, you know? I get why you wouldn't have Domino's branding in a haunted house or inside a factory, although in the ice rink level, a place where it'd be perfectly reasonable to see some kind of advertisement, you still don't see the old red and blue Domino. You'd imagine all these pizza places would be Domino's franchisees, but I guess pizza won the sponsorship battle for this one. Though to be fair, it's New York City, there's gonna be plenty of generic-ass pizza shops everywhere, so I guess it's realistic. But you know, this was supposed to be a game that epitomizes the decade, and all we've done is talk about pizza. Which is very 90s, but what else makes this game all that? Well, the Noid rides a skateboard in one level, so that definitely counts. And that's actually brought over directly from the Japanese version, so whether you're a ninja or a Noidja, you can shred like the rest of them. The Noid also gets his iconic pizza thumper in one stage that lets him bounce on enemies with ease, which is pretty fun. Finally, the Noid gets to spread his wings by taking to the skies in a flying doodad that the manual calls an ornithopter. Not that ornithopter, although that would be amazing. No, it's just a backpack helicopter, and with the same tight turning circle as your jumps and decent hovering mechanics, it's not a bad addition at all. And I have to admit, the Noid looks pretty fly with those goggles on. Yo! Noid was interesting because I expected this game to be a pizza shit, but once I started playing, it was shockingly competent. Given its origins, I guess that's not a huge surprise, and considering how much of a gamble it is to pop in a licensed NES game, it's fascinating that this turned out as solid as it is. But the underlying question is, should you avoid Yo! Noid? Probably. Not because it's terrible, but this is not some hidden gem that needs to be championed. Certainly because its base is, an actual game rather than a shameless plug for Domino's, oh yes we did. Yo! Noid has a solid foundation and that was translated over just fine. But it is just fine at its best, and unless you're really, and I mean really into NES platformers, it's not worth picking up. Honestly, the worst offense isn't some gameplay or graphical flaw, it's that all the Domino's coupons in the instruction manual are expired, so I can't get $1 off of my pizza order anymore. The bottom line is, if you're looking for a fun, action-packed platformer that's full of radical energy and pizza pies, then play Pizza Tower. And if you're looking for a decent platformer starring the Noid, then play the unofficial fan-made sequel Yo! Noid 2. And if you want to play Yo! Noid, well, figure it out. It's kind of like a Domino's pizza itself. It's not very fresh and it would be better if it was baked for longer, but it's a plate of food, and sometimes you just want to consume something unrefined. I can't wait until next year where I cover Super Little Caesars 3D. Anyway, I'm hungry now, so I'll just leave you with this image. Do with it what you will. Want to see me talk about more forgotten games? I've got a video on Snowboard Kids which you can watch right now. It's here on YouTube, for free even. Bye bye!